Contrary to what most people believe, the Israeli-Palestine conflict has not been going on for thousands of years. The conflict only started during World War I because of British and French strategic interests in the Mediterranean Sea. This was a major trading route. The Mediterranean Sea gave whoever controlled it access to India. The British Empire sought to control the Mediterranean trading route, and for this reason it was necessary to control the Suez Channel. But the presence of the Ottoman Navy based in the Levant was a direct threat to British interests. So the British and the French decided to divide the Middle East into smaller entities and countries to make it impossible for the Ottoman Empire to control them all. And during World War I, they implemented this idea. One of the Ottoman provinces was Ottoman Syria, which included the modern countries of Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Israel. This province was divided by the British and the French in the secret Sykes-Picot Agreement. Basically, these two empires drew a line from between Mosul and Baghdad to Mount Hermon to the sea in the west. The French controlled the north and the British controlled the south. To prevent the rise of any future regional power, the region was even further divided. Longtime French allies, the Maritime Christians, received their own piece of land. The predominant maritime region of Syria was turned into a separate country, and it was named after Mount Lebanon, the topographical characteristic of the region. Now, prior to this, Lebanon had never before existed as an independent state. Its main reason for unity was religious demography. The British were allied with several Arab tribes and clans, and they had made conflicting promises to various players. The most important British ally was the Hashemite people, who were the rulers of the Hejaz region in the Arabian Peninsula. But neither the British nor the French intended to keep their promises, and instead played all the smaller players against each other. And when the secret Sykes-Picot Agreement was published by the newly established Soviet Union, it caused turmoil for the region. By 1900, the Saudi clan had launched a reconquest of the Arabian Peninsula from Kuwait. By 1925, the Sauds gained control over the eastern and central parts of the peninsula and established the Third Saudi State, which would eventually become modern-day Saudi Arabia. So the Hashemites had lost the peninsula to the Sauds, but by then the British had given the Hashemite clan two new kingdoms, one in Iraq and another kingdom to the north of the Arabian Peninsula. To be more exact, to the north of the eastern side of the Jordan River. The Hashemites were centered on the town of Amman, and this region was renamed Transjordan, which basically means the other side of the Jordan River. After the British Empire withdrew in 1948, this land became Jordan and remained under the rule of the Hashemite clan and their people. But the native people of Jordan were still ethnically the same as the people on the other side of the Jordan River. That's why even today some politicians say that Jordan is actually Palestine because they are the same nation. As for Western Palestine, European Jews had been moving into this region under Ottoman rule since the 1880s. They joined relatively small Jewish communities that had existed there for centuries. This movement was part of the Jewish national movement, also known as the Zionist movement. They sought to create a Jewish state in the region. European Jewish settlers raised funds and purchased lands from landlords in Cairo and elsewhere who had gained ownership of the land under the Ottomans. The landlords sold the land out from under the feet of the local Arab population, thereby dispossessing them. From the Jewish point of view, this was a legitimate acquisition of land. From the perspective of the local Arabs, this was a direct assault on their livelihood, as the majority of the Arabs were evicted from their lands. So it began first as a real estate transaction and winded up as partition, dispossession, and conflict. After World War II, the region changed again. There was massive immigration of Jewish people after the Holocaust, and they slowly became the majority in the land, and during this time, nationalism had also reached the Arab world. The newly established Syrian state and the nation saw Palestine, Lebanon, and Jordan as part of historic Syria. They saw the Sykes-Picot Agreement as a violation of Syrian territorial integrity and opposed the existence of an independent Jewish state for the same reason they opposed Lebanese and Jordanian independence. Syria saw the population of these territories as Syrians and not independent nations. Nationalism also affected Jordan. After the division of British Palestine Mandate in 1948, Jordan took control of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. But there were deep tensions with the Palestinians and the newly arrived Hashemite people. So the rulers of Jordan, the Hashemite people, they saw Israel as a guarantee of Jordanian security against Palestinians. The Hashemite clan never wanted an independent Palestine state because they could have granted it independence between 1948 and 1967. Instead, in 1970, the Hashemites fought a bloody war against the Palestinians, forcing the Palestine Liberation Organization out of Jordan and into Lebanon. This became known as Black September, and it was followed by another war, the Lebanese Civil War, in which Syria actually invaded Lebanon to destroy the Palestine Liberation Organization and Fatah. Because just like Jordan, Syria too was unwilling to accept the concept of Palestinian statehood. So this is where the modern tensions between Lebanon, Syria, Hezbollah, Jordan and the Palestinians come from. And aside all of this, Egypt too does not recognize the Palestinian nationhood. In 1948, the Egyptian army drove into Gaza because Egypt saw Gaza and the Negev desert as an extension of the Sinai Peninsula. So the Egyptians viewed the region as an extension of Egypt, not as a distinct state. A few years later, in 1952, Gamal Abdul Nazar came to power in Egypt. His ambitions went even further. He had a vision of a single united Arab republic, both secular and socialist. This concept became a reality in 1958 when Egypt and Syria joined hands and formed a new federation. The new union became a threat to Jordanian national interests, and so the Hashemite kingdoms of Jordan and Iraq also joined hands and established a confederation called the Arab Federation. But this alliance collapsed in the same year because the Hashemite rulers in Iraq had lost control of the land in a coup by Nazarist military officers. But the idea of Nazar, a united Arab republic, went even further than just Egypt and Syria. This idea also saw Palestine as part of this union and not as an independent state. And this is where Yasser Arafat had his role. Basically, Arafat was allied with Nazar and promoted Arab nationalism. And key point to Arab nationalism was Palestine. But Arab nationalism did not necessarily imply an independent Palestinian republic. Furthermore, it is important to understand that Nazar's vision of a socialist union of Arab nations was hostile to the conservative monarchies in the Arabian Peninsula. Nazar intended to overthrow these monarchs as was done in Iraq. So this in turn triggered the Arab Cold War. On the one side you had the Arab Socialist Republics backed by the Soviet Union, and on the other side you had the conservative monarchies backed by the United States. In the end, Palestine is at the crossroads of the Arab world. It is critical to understand that Palestinian nationalism did not simply emerge just against Israel. Palestinian nationalism represents a challenge to the Arab world. Syria sees Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, and Israel as historic Syrian lands and claims to have rights to those lands. Egypt follows the concept of Nazar for a united Arab republic, and central to this plan is expanding its territories to Palestine and Israel. By following this concept, Egyptian and Syrian interests clash over Palestine, but then Saudi Arabia gets involved because they need to protect their interest against Nazar anti-monarchy concept. And then there is the Hashemite clan in Jordan, which is still very fearful that the last vestige of Hashemite monarchy could collapse under the weight of Palestinians. The direct enemy of Palestine is Israel, but even if Israel ceased to exist, Jordan, Egypt, Syria, and Saudi Arabia would immediately clash over Palestine. So the end of Israel does not guarantee a Palestinian state. The challenges for Palestine go well beyond its borders. This was a Caspian report by me, Shirvan. Thank you for watching. Sağ ol.